The Red Sox come back from the All-Star break with the worst result possible as they get swept by the Dodgers in LA.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And you want to know the best part? It is free, so you might as well take advantage of that because Locked On is your team every single day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Happy Monday. Welcome to Locked On Red Sox. And unfortunately, it's not the happiest of Mondays as a Red Sox fan because this team made it very difficult for us to wake up on a Monday morning because they went and came back from the All-Star break and got swept in LA by the Dodgers. And this is exactly what I was talking about on the show last week when I said you don't really know how teams are going to look coming out of the break. Are they going to be rusty or are they going to come out of the gates hot because the break was good for them? And in this situation, it was exactly what I worried about, in that the Red Sox had this rest from the break and it probably was a little bit too much time, and things just did not go as planned for them over the weekend in their series. And it's tough enough facing the Dodgers, one of the best teams in the league, coming back from the All-Star break. That's almost just not fair in a way. So if you add that combined with the fact that the Red Sox had taken these 4 days off, it's just a tough combination. And the Dodgers obviously benefited from the break, whereas the Red Sox, not so much. And it's just hard because this team overall has been playing such good baseball over the last couple months. So for there to be a flip that switched now and how they played over the weekend is just not the Red Sox team that we've seen before. It makes you worry a little bit about how they're going to look moving forward when they have the toughest schedule in the league here coming up. So the Friday night game ended up being 4-1, but for the longest time, I thought the Red Sox had that game. Nick Pivetta pitched 6 innings, giving up just 2 hits and no runs. He recorded 8 strikeouts, and he was cruising. He was looking very good, and the Red Sox took a 1-0 lead on a Jarren Duran home run. So that was super exciting. It was late in the game. It was frustrating because the Red Sox were stranding base runners, which they did for the entirety of the series. So finally, when the home run was hit, I said, something, let's go, finally. But nope, of course, then the bullpen had to fall apart late. In the 8th inning, Zach Kelly came in after Nick Pivetta went 1.1 innings. He gave up 1 earned run with 2 walks and 2 strikeouts, but he wasn't super sharp. So in the middle of his outing, he was pulled for Brennan Bernardino, who didn't record an out and gave up 2 hits and 3 earned runs, giving up a grand slam to Freddie Freeman. So that was horrifying, and it made it 4-1, and then it was the 9th inning, and the Red Sox lost. Greg Weiser came in for Bernardino and cleaned up the mess, just pitched 0.2 innings and gave up 0 runs. So he kind of helped fix it and get the Red Sox back on track. But what was super upsetting about that game was the fact that the Red Sox had opportunities to win, and they just could not cash in with runners on base. So that was super disappointing for them as a team. They recorded 9 hits in the game, compared to LA only recording 4, which I think makes it even more frustrating because the Red Sox had more opportunities for themselves, but they went 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position, leaving 6 on base. That is just not a recipe for winning a game. And when you look at the game overall and how everything went down, the Red Sox were playing the better game for the majority of it, and then fell apart in the late innings. The wheels came off the bus and they lost. And it was one of the most frustrating losses of the season. And it was just not a great way to start off the post All-Star break portion of the schedule. And I said, okay, well, let's, bounce back tomorrow. And then on Saturday, Brian Bayo pitched. He went 6 innings, giving up 5 hits and 3 earned runs, and he struck out 7. And ultimately, the Red Sox did lose this game. But one thing I will note about Pivetta is that he took a big step forward against a tough Dodgers lineup. He was able to pull off a quality start, giving up just 3 earned runs. So I do give him lots of props for that. He gave up 1 home run, and I love to see his strikeout rate increase a little bit because that's something that I've been waiting for him to work on, is just being able to strike out more guys. And so I was glad that he was able to generate those swings and misses in the game. The Red Sox had 10 hits in the game and the Dodgers had 12. And this game was pretty back and forth for most of it. It was a very competitive game for both teams. And the Dodgers got on the board first in the second inning on a home run. But then Jarren Duran put the Red Sox in front in the 5th inning, and the game just kept going back and forth like that. The Red Sox took a 4-3 lead in the top of the 7th inning when Tyler O'Neill smoked a home run, who, by the way, just has a lot of power at the plate and certainly put that on display in this series. So when the Red Sox went up 4-3 late, I was praying that they would be able to hold that lead. But then Kenley Jansen comes in to pitch the 9th inning, and in the least opportune situation possible, gave up his first home run that he's given up all season long to Kike Hernandez, of all people, a former Red Sox player who couldn't hit at all when he was in Boston. Like, why are we giving up a home run to this guy to tie the game in the bottom of the 9th inning? So that was super upsetting because, again, the Red Sox had it within reach. Then the home run was hit to tie the game and force extra innings. Tyler O'Neill again hit a home run in the top of the 10th inning. So he had himself a game. He was pulling a lot of the weight for this Red Sox team in the game. And it was a 2-run homer because it also scored Duran. So the Red Sox went up 6-4. But then in the bottom of the 10th inning with Weiser pitching, he gave up 2 runs. So the game became tied again at 6. And then in the bottom of the 11th with Weiser back in the game again, the Dodgers hit a walk-off single to win 7-6. And it was super frustrating to me because of the fact that once again, the Red Sox had their opportunities and they could not get the job done. And it made it very frustrating to watch a game like that. And the Red Sox had all the momentum when they took that 4-3 lead. They were grinding. They came back from being behind. And it felt like that was how the game was going to end. But Kenley Jansen, very inopportune situation for him to give up a home run there. And again, left 9 on base and went 2 for 14 as a team with runners in scoring position. That just cannot happen. The Red Sox just keep wasting lots of opportunities with runners on base. And it's really pathetic that they couldn't pull together those big hits that they needed to score people, because it's not like they weren't generating any offense. They were getting on base. They just could not cash in and get that big hit needed to drive in those runs. So it was definitely horrifying and just a very painful series overall to have to go through. And then Sunday night, they lost 9-6, and the Dodgers kind of jumped on the Red Sox relatively early in that game. And I talked about it on the show, how the Dodgers have lots of power, and they showcased that in the series finale on Sunday. Jarren Duran hit a 2-run homer in the first inning, so that was nice. Gave the Red Sox a lead that was very short-lived, because in the bottom of that same inning, Freddie Freeman went deep, and then Gavin Lux doubled to tie the game at 2. And then Teoscar Hernandez hit a home run. So that kept that string of Dodgers power bats alive. And Lux hit a home run, 379 feet, to give the Dodgers a 4-2 lead. And then Barnes and Ohtani both homered in the fifth. So it was just home run central. And then Hayward in the bottom of the eighth hit another one. So these Red Sox pitchers could not keep the ball in the ballpark. And I gave this warning ahead of time before the series started that the Dodgers hit home runs a lot. They are one of the top teams in baseball when it comes to going deep. And unfortunately, the Red Sox pitchers didn't seem to have that memo because they gave up a lot of the deep ball. And the Red Sox came back a little too late, scored 3 runs in the 9th inning, and had some more base traffic with an opportunity to score more runs with the bases loaded, and squandered that opportunity and ended up falling short. But they put pressure on this Dodgers team. They just could not cash in, left 10 on base in the finale, going 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position. So if you know the pattern, they were giving up runs and not allowing themselves to cash in when it was their opportunity on offense. So just overall in this series, we needed to see a lot more from the offense as a whole, more big hits that the Dodgers were getting. And it was definitely very upsetting because Kenley Jansen just was not himself. He made an appearance in 2 of the games in this series. So coming up, I'm going to be talking a little bit about him and what's to come for him. If you're looking for a fun way to play daily fantasy sports, check out PrizePicks today. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. Get in on the excitement and win up to 100 times your cash with the summer games on PrizePicks. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup of players across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you're locked in. All you have to do is just download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. It really is easy. And if you want to win some money, you have nothing to lose but to check out PrizePicks today. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. eBay Motors is a great resource, especially for somebody like me who really doesn't know much at all about cars. So check it out today if you're finding yourself in that same boat as me. Also, you should check out Locked On Sports today on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app, as we as a network have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel available for you to keep you caught up in all things going on in sports, no matter where you are or what time zone you're in. So make sure you check that out today if you're looking to stay caught up in all of the biggest stories in sports. In what ended up being a very pathetic showing by the Boston Red Sox over the weekend, where they got swept by the Dodgers in LA, even though they had multiple opportunities to win, especially the first 2 games, they did not get much help, unfortunately, from their closer, Kenley Jansen. He made an appearance in Saturday's game, and gave up a game-tying home run to blow the save, and then the Dodgers eventually went on to win the game. And then on Sunday night, he also pitched 1 inning, giving up 3 hits and 3 earned runs. And it was definitely an odd spot for him to pitch in because it was when the Red Sox were down 3 runs already, and he came in the bottom of the 8th inning. And so it was definitely strange because we don't usually see Kenley for 1 in the 8th inning or for 2 when the Red Sox are losing. But it was definitely a surprising situation, but he did not look good. Gave up an RBI single that drove in a run and then gave up a 2-run homer all in that same inning to make it 9-3 Dodgers. And Alex Cora was talking about and explaining after the game why he pitched in that situation. So he's always had some heart problems throughout his whole career. And for whatever reason, when he's traveled to Colorado in the past, he's had 3 different situations that have been pretty scary for him. So he doesn't really feel comfortable traveling to Colorado anymore. So he's not going to be traveling with the team for that series this week. And so because of that, and because of the fact that he's not traveling with the team, he wanted to pitch during Sunday night's game to give his teammates some rest. So that definitely makes sense once you know the details behind why he isn't going to be going with the team. It makes a lot more sense why he pitched in that situation, because it was a game where the Red Sox had pretty much thrown it in the towel anyway. I knew as soon as they put Chase Anderson into the game that they were basically calling it quits on this game and series, because Anderson's always the guy who goes into games late when the Red Sox are already losing, and Alex Cora feels like they don't have a chance to win the game. So I knew they were kind of throwing the game in the towel. So Kenley Jansen came in the bottom of the 8th inning and pitched, since he won't be taking the upcoming road trip, probably figuring it would be nice for his teammates if he could just give them some relief and be able to pitch instead. And that's definitely helpful when we go into this next series that the Red Sox desperately have to bounce back in and win against a Rockies team that is currently 36-64 and last in the NL West. So this is a must-win series. I mean, I would love a sweep. Beggars can't be choosers. I absolutely will just take a series win, but a sweep would be ideal for them to be able to bounce back from this, because getting swept right after the break is so far from ideal. And this Red Sox team just did not look like themselves. And Kenley Jansen, is this series worrisome? For sure. Do I feel like Kenley has now regressed to the point where he's not going to be a reliable closer anymore? Absolutely not. I mean, he has a personal connection to LA, played a lot of his career there, and I'm sure there was some pressure on him to want to deliver against his former team. And it didn't happen on Saturday. And then again, it didn't happen on Sunday, but even more amplified. So it's definitely probably a little bit discouraging for him, but I feel like a lot of it has to do with coming back from the break and being a little bit rusty. I kind of expected this to be the case with this Red Sox team, that they'd come back and get a little too comfortable with not having played for a few days, and they go out there and they kind of forget how to play baseball cohesively with everybody filling into their specific roles. But I have to give Jarren Duran and Tyler O'Neill lots of credit in this series. 2 guys who offensively really stepped up. Wilyer Abreu needs to get it back together. He's been too much off and on for me this year, more off than on, unfortunately. So I'm hoping he can figure that out and get himself back on track to being very productive more consistently. So there were definitely a lot of things that were of concern, but I don't really look at this situation and see it as a situation in which I should panic or freak out or worry that Kenley is not going to be able to effectively close games anymore, because at the end of the day, he is still a Hall of Fame closer, and everybody is going to have bad nights. It's just natural. It's part of the game. And when you look at the circumstance, especially with this being right after the All-Star break and their first series back to action after that, you have to give these guys a little bit of leeway. Unfortunately, just ran into a very good team that capitalizes on mistakes and does not waste lots of opportunities on offense. So that was kind of an unlucky thing, was getting the Dodgers specifically after the break. But I still trust Kenley. I still feel like he is the closer that the Red Sox need if they want to be able to be competitive the rest of this year. And I have seen some people on Twitter who have said, is it time to panic about Kenley Jansen? I would say not yet. He rarely gives up home runs. I know he gave up home runs 2 nights in a row, which is not a good look for him, but I don't feel like this is a reflection of how he's going to be moving forward. I still feel like he very much has it, and I think there was just an added pressure on him this weekend because of the fact that he was going against his former team, and the Red Sox are in a spot where they have a definitive chance of making the playoffs, and he just wants to do everything that he can do to deliver for his team. So I'm glad we got this Dodgers series out of the way and don't have to play them anymore. But my gosh, we needed to win at least one of those games. And when you look at it all for what it was, it's like, of course, it happens to be the time where Kenley doesn't look good and he's rusty. Like, of all times for it to be was in this series when the Red Sox were struggling for wins and were missing opportunities that they shouldn't have been missing. Just a very inopportune time for him to be off. But I just think he was just off. That's it. I feel like he'll bounce back in his next outing, whenever that may be. Maybe getting a little bit more rest would be good, not having to go on the trip to Colorado, and he can be back to being fully rested and normal, hopefully, when the Red Sox come back home, and he can provide value in the closing role like we know he does best. So I am not panicking about Kenley Jansen. Was it frustrating? 100%. Those home runs kind of came out of nowhere because he doesn't really give up home runs much. So definitely disappointing, but the series as a whole was disappointing, and it's never on one person. You can't just take Kenley Jansen and blame him for the Red Sox losing this series. There were lots of different factors that went into this, lots of players who were not stepping up to the level they needed to be at, and lots of guys who really were not taking care of business and doing their job. And I don't know if there was fatigue involved because of the traveling for this trip and the time difference and not being right after the break. I mean, there could be a lot of different factors that led to this. But when Kenley has, his worst set of outings for the season so far, and other guys are also not stepping up to the plate, it's a tough look for the Red Sox. And we absolutely need to take advantage of the fact that it is the Rockies next and sweep that series ideally, because this is a team that they very easily should be able to beat. And it's definitely a little bit of a refreshing feeling thinking about it being the Rockies next, because another Dodgers type of team right after could be very demoralizing, and it could affect the Red Sox performance even more. So the next time they have to face a very competitive team, I'd rather them get back on track first with winning baseball games. And these guys know, they don't want to lose. Nobody likes losing, and they are the most determined bunch in the world. So I feel like they will bounce back. I just understand that it's hard to have confidence in that right now, because it is discouraging getting swept when you had opportunities not to do so. So we'll see what happens, but they absolutely need to at least win the series against the Rockies at the very least. But a sweep to make up for this terrible weekend series would be very much ideal. Coming up, I'm going to be talking about what happens from here with the Red Sox and the front office and ownership after this series. Going to be going into that a little bit next. Are you into sports betting? Are you somebody who's been trying to get into it and haven't really? Whatever your level is of sports betting experience, FanDuel is the spot for you. I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets any time I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. FanDuel is so much fun, and there's so much money that could be had. Just ask my fiance. He does it all the time, making all of these bets. So head to FanDuel if you want to start changing your life with how much money you're making. Also, just a reminder to check out Locked On Sports today on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app, as we as a network will keep you up to date on all things going on in sports with all of our experts here at Locked On. So that way you don't have to worry about scrolling through Twitter every time you want to get more sports news. We will just keep you updated on a continuous feed. So make sure you check that out on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. The Red Sox got swept by the Dodgers. It is what it is. I mean, it's unfortunate, but happens to everybody at some points of the season. It just is tough because of how much momentum the Red Sox had going into this series. They've been playing very well. They had a ridiculously good month of June and a really good month of July so far too. So to come back from the break all excited just to get swept is very much not ideal, but hopefully they're able to bounce back from it, and they definitely need to if they still want the front office to be buyers at the trade deadline, because that leads to this next topic of where do the Red Sox go from here? Craig Breslow and company already felt like they had a tough decision to make when it comes to figuring out what direction they want to take this team in, if they want to sell or if they want to buy. And Chaim Bloom always had trouble with picking a lane. He never really picked one at the deadline. He never fully committed to selling or buying. He would kind of try to do a mix of both. I feel like Craig Breslow is more of a pick a lane type of guy. And if he commits to selling, then he's just going to sell and focus on getting some good prospects in return. But if he wants to buy, I think he'll actually seriously buy and be aggressive out there on the trade market. But my worry is that this series that just happened over the weekend might impact the front office's decision in terms of what they want to do with this team, because from their perspective, they might look at it and say, well, the Red Sox still can't compete with the top dogs like the Dodgers. They clearly are a step behind teams like that. So why would we try to add when realistically we can't get past a team like that this year? So I'm very worried about this series and its impact. If the Red Sox are able to turn it around over the next 10 days or so, then that would be different. Then we probably are having a different conversation of, okay, yeah, they definitely should still be buyers, but they have a tough schedule here coming up, and it's going to be a grind, and they're going to have to work for wins, and how they do over the next 10 days very much could determine whether they are buyers or sellers. I've always been on the buying train. I think this team has done a lot to show that they deserve to be invested in, but if they have losses like they did this entire weekend and they can't figure out how to beat teams and how to win series, then I couldn't really blame the front office for saying, well, we don't have everything it takes this year, so we might as well just try to get more pieces for the future that we can develop in our system. So this is a huge, huge stretch right now for this team. And I know the personalities of a lot of the guys on this team are very much like win or go home type mentality. And they are hungry and they want to prove people wrong and they want to win games. And this stretch right here is going to be a huge indicator of truly where they're at relative to everybody else, and truly if they can be a team that deserves to be invested in at this deadline. So I'm hoping that they are able to get it to the point where the front office can confidently invest in them at the deadline and know that they're making the right decision. And that's going to be the biggest thing here moving forward is, can the Red Sox win games over the course of the next week or so, or are they going to continue to drop series and get it to the point where it's difficult for the front office to say they have the pieces necessary to be able to make a run? They just need to add a few pieces. So definitely time will tell. They need to continue to play good baseball and not let this series impact them mentally too much and just move on from it. It is what it is. It's over. Now just focus on the next series and focus on getting back on track to what we've seen over the last couple months as a whole. The Dodgers are not in the American League. We don't have to worry about playing them again unless we see them in the World Series. So now is the time to just say, yes, the series was unfortunate and it stunk, but we don't have time to dwell on it. We need to go back out there and win baseball games and do our job and just show this front office that we can bounce back from adversity and difficulty, because in the playoffs, it's such a different animal and teams are going to lose games. And the best teams are the ones that respond well to that and they go back out there and they win after that. And so the Red Sox need to show that even though they got swept by one of the best teams in baseball, they have the capability to go back out there and keep winning beyond that. So I think Craig Breslow and the front office are going to be closely watching all of these games over the next week or so from here on out to really see what this team is missing. And they definitely need pitching help. That is no question. They could use a right-handed power bat for sure. But will the front office be willing to add those pieces or not? And this is exactly the concern I had was, are we going to be having a conversation after this series about whether the Red Sox really are buyers? Because it gets to the point where it's now like, okay, are they frauds? Did they just happen to have a really fun stretch in June and into July? But their real identity is the team that we saw earlier on in the season, like in April and May, that was floating around 500 and was just losing a lot more games. This is the stretch where we'll really know that when they're playing lots of hard teams. All the talk about the trade deadline are coming about, and there's just a lot of chatter going on, and they need to be able to block the outside noise and continue to play baseball their way. And I think a lot's riding on this trade deadline, even when it comes to Alex Cora's future with the Boston Red Sox. I feel like there's a chance that he leaves and has no interest in coming back to Boston after this year if they don't do anything at this trade deadline to improve as a team. And honestly, I can't really hate on that if that ends up being the case and he ends up making the decision that he doesn't want to be here anymore, because I wouldn't blame him if he has felt like the organization is not giving him good pieces to be able to field a championship caliber team and be able to succeed with. And that can be very difficult for a manager when they get blamed for a lot of different things, but they only can work with the roster they have in front of them. And I think Cora's done a very good job this year so far with managing this roster and keeping this team afloat, especially with all the injuries. But if they don't go out and make some moves to add to this team at the deadline, why should Cora stay? Because in his mind, that would definitely paint a picture of, well, they don't really care that much. Like they're not putting an effort into adding pieces to make us a more competitive team. So what reason would I have to stick around and manage this team when I can go somewhere else to a team that is in a lot better spot to win a championship and just help them get to that goal? So definitely lots of things riding on this upcoming trade deadline. Huge, huge year for Craig Breslow and everybody. I'm hoping the Red Sox can win some games and make the decision a little bit easier for them, but I would not be surprised if they look back at this series at the trade deadline and say, do we really feel like this is all worth it? Because they just got swept by one of the best teams in baseball that likely has a good shot to be in the World Series. So is there a point in trying to add if we're just going to fall short against a team like that? So this was not a good series to lose at all, especially get swept in. But I'm trying to be optimistic, and hopefully we can bounce back from this and just continue to play good baseball the way the Red Sox know how to play baseball, because that's really all we can do. So hopefully they're able to bounce back. Hopefully they're able to do some things to show the front office that they have the potential as much as anybody else does, and they deserve to have missing pieces of the team be added at the deadline. And it doesn't even need to be these crazy high cost guys. They don't need an ace caliber starter because they have Houck as that guy. They do need bullpen help, and they definitely need a starter, maybe even two, but they could even be more back end starters that can just eat innings. So they don't need super expensive pieces, most likely, but are they going to go out and pull the trigger on it, or are they just going to feel like the Red Sox are just not one of those teams that is worth investing in? The next couple of weeks will certainly tell us a lot for sure. So we've just got to hope that the Red Sox can win games and go out there and play their best version of baseball that we know is in there and we've seen before. So as always, I know it can be hard this week because of the fact that the Red Sox did get swept, but just try to keep the faith. Go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.